I had spent an unbelievable $500,000 on Henry. Looking back, it's hard to understand how it even happened. What made it worse was that he didn't even come to my mother's funeral. Then, out of nowhere, he flew overseas without telling me. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. What did he do with all that money? I started thinking about the things I had sold from the family home. One item stood out in my memory, a beautiful grand piano. It had been in our house for many years and meant a lot to us. I had sold it, thinking it would bring in a good amount of money, maybe a few $1,000s. I was shocked when it sold for $500,000. That was the same amount I had spent on Henry. Then, I found out something surprising. Henry had believed that the grand piano was his. He thought he had the right to the money from the sale. But he was wrong. The piano was part of our family estate, and I had inherited it. Our grandfather originally bought the piano for my brother, who is a piano teacher. Because the piano was so large, my brother left it at our family home. But he still felt like it belonged to him. I knew he would be very upset that I sold it without asking. When I realized the mix-up, I told Henry about it. I explained that we needed to make things right and give my brother some of the money from the sale. As soon as I said this, Henry hung up the phone on me. He didn't call back. Let me tell you a little more about myself. My name is Helen Hadsell. I'm 47 years old and work in an office. I come from a family with a long history going back to colonial times. Even though I've always wanted to be independent, family pressure pushed me to find someone to marry and continue our family name. That's how I met Henry. He was 12 years younger than me and we met at a singles event. He was quiet and shy, and I thought he would be a good match for me and my strong-willed family. As we got to know each other, I told him about my difficult home life. My mother was very ill, and my sister-in-law Sophia and I were caring for her. I expected Henry to walk away when he heard that, but instead, he stayed. He even proposed and said he wanted to help with caregiving. At first, his support touched me. It meant a lot that someone cared enough to help. Henry worked as a daycare teacher, so I thought he was a caring and responsible person. But only a few months after we got married, he suddenly told me he wanted to quit his job. That was the first sign something was wrong. And sadly, things only got worse from there. One day, I asked Henry why he suddenly wanted to quit his job. He looked sad and said, "Sorry, Helen. The parents at the daycare are too demanding. They complain all the time, and I just can't deal with it anymore." He looked tired and stressed. I wanted to support him, but I didn't know what to say. He was already helping me take care of my sick mother, and he seemed fragile. I didn't want to push him too hard. To make things more complicated, I was 4 months pregnant at the time. I really wanted things to work out between us, especially for the sake of our baby. I told myself to be patient and understanding. I thought maybe he just needed time to figure things out. So, I decided to be gentle with him and not argue. But my kindness didn't last long. One day, after taking a shower, I was about to walk into the bedroom when I heard Henry whispering on the phone. I froze when I heard what he was saying. I stayed quiet and listened from behind the door. What I heard shocked me to my core. He told someone on the phone that he had been unemployed for 3 years. He had lied to me about quitting his job recently. He was never working during our relationship. He had made me believe he was just stepping away from work for a little while. But that wasn't true. It became clear from the call that he saw marrying into my family, who has some money, as a lucky chance for himself. To him, our relationship was like winning a prize. I felt crushed. My heart dropped. I wanted to rush into the room and confront him right away. But then I thought about the baby growing inside me. I needed to stay calm, for my child's sake. Still, my trust in Henry was broken, and I didn't know what to do next. Later that day, my sister-in-law Madison was taking care of my mother until 4 p.m. After that, I would take over. While I sat thinking about everything, Madison noticed the look on my face. "Helen, you look really upset. Is something bothering you?" she asked gently. Madison is a kind person. She had taken care of her own mother for many years, and now helped with mine. She was good at it, and I trusted her. I decided to tell her what was going on with Henry. She listened carefully. When I was done, she said, "I'm glad you told me. Keeping something like this to yourself could be harmful, especially while you're pregnant. She smiled kindly and added, talking might not fix everything, but it does make the burden lighter.
Just then, the doorbell rang.
To our surprise, Henry walked in without waiting for anyone to open the door. Both Madison and I were startled, but Henry acted like nothing was wrong. He even offered to help take care of my mom, as if everything was perfectly normal. Henry suddenly started acting like a caring husband. With a serious voice, he said, "Helen, from today on, I'm going to take care of your mom. You're still in the early stages of pregnancy, and I don't want you overworking or fainting." He tried to sound kind and thoughtful, like he really cared about my health. I didn't want to argue, so I nodded and agreed. Henry smiled and said, "All right then, let me show you how to care for her." But before he could start, Madison stepped in and spoke firmly. "No, I'll take care of it. I'll learn how to help from Madison, not you. Helen should just rest at home." Then Madison added something else. She said my brother would be coming home early, so she wouldn't need Henry's help after all. When Henry heard this, his face changed. Madison gave me a quick glance and shook her head slightly, as if to say she didn't believe him and planned to find out the truth. After she walked out of the room, I decided to pretend I was leaving too. But I didn't go far. I stayed close by, hiding just around the corner. I was worried and needed to know what would happen next. Madison tried to start a conversation with Henry, but before she could ask anything, he spoke up first. "I've been wondering," Henry said. "Why are you even here taking care of your mother-in-law in this house?" He used the same cold and fake tone I had heard him use on the phone before. Madison calmly explained the situation to him, but Henry's reaction shocked me. He began saying awful things. He accused Madison of having secret reasons for helping and suggested she was only doing it because she wanted part of the family's money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My blood was boiling. I felt like bursting into the room and shouting at him. But just as I was about to go in, Madison looked up and gave me a small signal with her eyes. She was telling me to stay out of it, at least for now. I took a deep breath and held myself back. Henry kept pushing. He said Madison had hit a nerve and then ordered her to leave. He told her that the family's wealth belonged only to him and me, and she had no right to be involved. Madison saw that trying to talk to him any longer was pointless. Without saying another word, she calmly walked away. I quietly stepped outside, feeling heartbroken and embarrassed by how Henry had treated her. I began thinking about how I could say sorry to Madison later for everything Henry had said. Meanwhile, Henry acted like nothing had happened. He went back to my mom and started taking control of her care, as if he were doing it all out of kindness. But after everything I had just seen and heard, I couldn't believe his act anymore. I knew deep down that I shouldn't have let Henry take over caring for my mom. He gave me a quick lesson on the basics of caregiving, but he didn't take it seriously. He was careless and didn't give my mother the attention she needed. Sadly, because of his neglect, my mother passed away while under his care. The funeral was held at the old church where many generations of my family had been laid to rest. It was a peaceful place filled with memories. But from the moment my mom died, Henry disappeared. I tried to find him, but he was nowhere to be seen. I was busy planning the funeral and handling all the arrangements, so I didn't have much time to search for him properly. Still, his absence was strange. Family members and neighbors noticed that Henry wasn't at the funeral. Everyone wondered where he had gone. Madison, my sister-in-law, was especially upset. She cried in front of the altar and kept apologizing, saying she was sorry for trusting Henry to take care of Mom. I went to comfort her, telling her it wasn't her fault. I tried to help her let go of the guilt, but she was heartbroken. Madison told me that she had always worried about Henry. She remembered many times when he would leave the house even though he was supposed to be caring for Mom. Some of the neighbors said they saw him coming and going often, almost like he was never home. It seemed like he had been pretending to help when he really wasn't. One neighbor even mentioned seeing a large truck parked outside our home a few times. I didn't want to bring this up during the funeral, so I stayed quiet. But it stayed in the back of my mind. Several days passed after the funeral, and Henry still hadn't come home. Then, out of the blue, I got a phone call from him. I answered, and his voice sounded light and cheerful, as if nothing had happened. He told me he was staying at a fancy hotel in Europe, the kind he had seen on a travel show. He was enjoying himself and didn't seem to care at all about what had happened. I was furious. I asked him how he could skip my mom's funeral. That's when he dropped a shocking truth. He had sold the grand piano from our family home and used the money, $500,000, to fund his trip to Europe. That piano was something my mother deeply cherished. She had always called it a family treasure. I couldn't believe Henry had sold it without telling me.
It all made sense now.
The truck that the neighbors had seen must have been used to take the piano away. Henry had planned it all. He used our family's history and my trust to get what he wanted. I was speechless. My heart was broken, and I felt completely betrayed. I decided to confront Henry about everything he had done. I couldn't keep my feelings bottled up anymore. I asked him how he could act so selfishly and betray my trust. But instead of apologizing or showing any guilt, Henry just shrugged and said, "Well, since you have a job, I'll just become a stay-at-home dad." His careless words left me speechless. It was clear now, he had no intention of helping or being a responsible partner. He just wanted to live off my income. As if that wasn't bad enough, Henry still didn't seem to understand that the grand piano he sold didn't even belong to me. He thought it was mine, and that he had the right to sell it. I had to explain the truth to him. I told him that the grand piano had been a gift from our grandfather to my brother. My brother, a piano teacher, had left it at our family home because it was too big to move. But he still loved it dearly. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It meant something special to him. Henry didn't show much emotion. He simply asked, "Well, should I just say sorry to your brother?" I was shocked by how casually he treated the matter. I told him that my brother wouldn't accept a simple apology. He was a serious man who hated lies and disrespect. And selling the piano, without permission, was both. When I explained all of this, Henry suddenly hung up the phone. I could only imagine what was going through his mind. Maybe he was scared or finally realizing how serious the situation was. After the call, I picked up the phone again, this time to talk to my brother. I knew he would be furious when he found out what Henry had done. I explained everything to him, and as expected, he was livid. He could barely believe what he was hearing. The next day, I arranged a family meeting. Everyone gathered at the house, my brother, his wife Madison, and some of our close relatives. We all sat in the living room waiting for Henry to arrive. When Henry walked through the front door and saw everyone sitting there, his eyes widened. He was clearly surprised and confused.
"What's going on?" he asked.
My brother stood up and gave him a stern look. "Henry, I heard everything from Helen," he said. "What were you thinking? You sold something that didn't belong to you. And not just anything. You sold a valuable piano without even asking the family." Henry looked nervous. He fumbled with his words and said, I was just trying to help around the house. I got bored and thought no one used the piano anymore." "So, you decided to sell it?" my brother asked, his voice calm but firm. Henry looked down and admitted quietly, "Yes, I did." It was clear he had no real excuse, and the damage was already done. "Yes," Henry said. "I mean, it just seemed like a waste to leave the piano sitting there." My brother kept a firm and serious look on his face. He wasn't about to let Henry off the hook so easily. "Really?" my brother asked sharply. "That piano wasn't just any old instrument. Our grandfather brought it here, all the way from Europe. It was made by one of the best piano makers in the world. Do you even know what that means?" Then his voice got even more serious. "Where is the money from the sale?" It was clear that my brother was trying to get a full confession from Henry. He wasn't just angry, he wanted Henry to admit everything in front of the whole family. Henry looked nervous. He opened his mouth but couldn't speak right away. His eyes darted around the room. The money, yeah, it hasn't come in yet," he said, stammering, clearly trying to come up with something believable. But my brother wasn't buying it. His patience snapped. "Stop lying," he shouted. "How can you be this dishonest? And what about those souvenirs from Europe? And that huge suitcase you brought back?" Henry's face went pale. He closed his eyes for a moment, then slowly admitted, "I'm sorry. I used all the money. The room went completely quiet. Then the whispers started. Relatives sitting around the room began murmuring in shock. One of them said, "He spent all $500,000? Another said, "On just one trip?" People were clearly shocked. The piano had been so valuable, both in money and in memories. And Henry had blown it all on hotels, food, and gifts during his vacation. My brother stepped closer to Henry and lifted his chin with his hand, forcing Henry to look him in the eye. "You already know this from Helen, but that piano is mine," he said firmly. "And now that it's gone, you're going to pay back every single dollar."
He didn't stop there.
"If you don't, I'll take legal action. I'll sue you for theft. You took something that didn't belong to you and sold it without permission. Do you understand how serious this is?" Henry looked terrified. He didn't know anything about the law, and now he was faced with the threat of being taken to court. He started sweating, his hands shaking slightly. He turned to me with pleading eyes and said, "Helen, please help me." I looked at him, without saying a word. His actions had led to this moment. I had trusted him, and he had broken that trust completely. I didn't owe him anything. This mess was entirely his fault, and now he would have to deal with the consequences. When I refused to help Henry, he suddenly changed his approach and said something completely ridiculous. He claimed that he deserved the trip to Europe as a reward for taking care of my mom during my pregnancy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then, to make things even worse, he tried to say that we had both agreed to sell the piano. He argued that because my brother and I are siblings, it didn't count as stealing. My mouth hung open. I was stunned into silence. His lies were not just unbelievable, they were insulting. Thankfully, Madison stepped in to defend me. She had had enough. "That's enough, Henry," she said firmly. "Don't you remember telling Helen not to come and help with caregiving? And you even told me that you thought I was just after the inheritance. You tried to push me away from the family." Madison revealed that Henry had been trying to keep us away from the house. He didn't want anyone near the piano because he had planned to sell it behind our backs. Hearing this only made the situation worse. My brother's anger grew again. He turned to Henry and said, "Madison cared for our mother out of love, not for money. You owe her an apology right now." Without giving Henry a chance to escape, my brother grabbed him by the collar and forced him to kneel in front of Madison. She looked hurt and heartbroken, her eyes filled with tears. Henry, clearly shaken, apologized to her, but the damage was already done. The rest of the family was just as upset. One of our relatives shouted, "Pay back the money you got from selling the piano. Don't bring shame to the Hadsell family name." But Henry, still not understanding how serious everything was, said something that made everyone freeze. He suggested that we could just save money together, slowly, and pay the amount back bit by bit. He said it like it was no big deal, as if we were planning for a vacation, not fixing a huge betrayal. Even my uncle, who rarely spoke up, was speechless at how clueless Henry sounded. His words weren't just foolish, they showed he didn't understand the pain he had caused. At that moment, I realized talking wouldn't fix anything. I quietly walked upstairs to my room and returned holding something important, a business card from a divorce lawyer. I handed it to Henry and said clearly, "Call this number. I want a divorce. From now on, we will only speak through lawyers." Henry's face went pale. He stared at the card like it was the scariest thing he had ever seen. "Why are you doing this?" he asked in shock. "We're going to have a baby." But I had already made up my mind. Enough was enough. I finally told everyone what Henry had said during his secret phone call. I revealed how he had planned everything from the start and only married me to get access to my inheritance. I had known the truth for some time but had stayed quiet, hoping I was wrong. Now, with everyone present, I laid it all out. As soon as I spoke, the room fell silent. Everyone stared coldly at Henry. He could see that he had no way to escape the truth anymore. But instead of apologizing, Henry changed completely. He dropped his usual quiet and gentle act and became angry and bold. He looked around the room and said, "I'm disappointed. I thought I could at least get close to that $17 million inheritance Helen got from her mother after we got married." Everyone was shocked. Henry had always acted kind and soft-spoken. Hearing him talk like that left us stunned. I felt a deep pain in my heart. Maybe I should have been more careful. After all, I met him at a dating event, and he was 12 years younger than me. But I never imagined he had only been pretending. From that moment on, Henry became a complete stranger to me, and to my brother, too. It was clear now that Henry had to return the money from the piano he sold without permission. Henry broke down and cried, saying he couldn't repay the $500,000. But with the whole family there, all willing to speak out and support me, he couldn't avoid the consequences. To make things clear, I told Henry the first would not ask for child support, but in return, he would have no part in our child's life. I told him firmly, "This is my child. You gave up the right to be the father when you betrayed us. You will not be involved, not now or ever." After our divorce, Henry's life started to fall apart. He didn't have any money and had to take low-paying jobs just to survive. Things got even worse when the person who bought the grand piano from him demanded a refund. The buyer had been told the piano was in perfect shape, but when they checked the back of it, they found a large engraving, my brother's name, carved clearly into the wood. It proved that the piano wasn't Henry's to sell. He hadn't even bothered to check the back. The buyer wanted their money back, and Henry was forced to return the $500,000. But because he also owed my brother for the theft, his debts grew even larger. Henry tried to file for bankruptcy, but my brother and I stopped him through legal action. Now, with no way out, Henry had to work long hours doing hard labor just to make small payments. In the end, the family heirloom, the grand piano, was returned to my brother. He now keeps it safe and has taken extra steps to protect it, making sure it will never be stolen again. To protect the grand piano, my brother took strong steps. He installed a heavy-duty lock on the room where the piano was kept and also set up a security camera. He didn't want to take any chances after what had happened. The piano meant so much to him, and now he was determined to keep it safe forever. My brother had always loved music, even as a child. That part of him never changed. Now, with the piano back in his care, he shared a dream with us. He wanted to start a piano school at our family home. He hoped to teach children and share his passion for music with the next generation. It made all of us smile to see him excited about something again. Around the same time, we began talking about how to divide our mother's inheritance. My brother supported the choices I made and was fair and understanding. It made our bond even stronger, and we were able to build a good, respectful relationship with one another. There were no more fights or disagreements, just support and kindness. Then, the happiest moment came. I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. She was everything I had hoped for, and more. Though I was now a single mother, I didn't feel alone. I had the love and help of my family, especially Madison and my brother. Madison, who had always stood by me during the hardest times, continued to be my rock. She was more like a sister than a sister-in-law. Her calm nature and kind heart helped me feel strong, even when things were tough. She never judged me and was always there to listen. My brother, who had once been filled with anger over the loss of the piano, changed. He stepped in as a father figure for my daughter and embraced the role with love and joy. He was proud to be a part of her life and never hesitated to help when I needed it. Even my nieces, inspired by their father's love for the piano, became kindergarten teachers. They adore my daughter and always found ways to include her in their games and activities. Watching them care for her made my heart full. I couldn't believe how far we had come, from the betrayal and heartbreak caused by Henry to the peace and happiness we had found together as a family. My daughter was growing up in a loving, supportive home, and that was the most important thing of all. With everything I had been through, I chose to stay strong and live with hope. I looked at my daughter and knew I had every reason to keep going. I was thankful for the blessings around me, the people who stood by my side, and the future that now looked so bright. Together, my daughter and I would build a beautiful life, surrounded by love, music, and family.